So Tyla is a very popular South African artist. She's popular in Africa for sure, was making inroads into the US market. And her album, which just got released, sold less than 4,000 copies in its first week, which is by any stretch really, really bad, especially if you have millions of fans. You're as exposed as she is. I think they give her a Grammy or something, and so on and so forth. It's obviously a bad performance. And listen, we know that there's streaming. We know that there's streams versus physical copy purchases and all of these sorts of things. But by any metric, somebody of that level selling those such few copies, and it just shouldn't happen. Now, a lot of people have said that the reason for this is because of her comments and her position regarding colored versus black, and where she said when she was, um, asked the question that, you call yourself colored and you say you're not black. What does that mean? And she said, no, I'm not black. I'm colored because in South Africa we have a different term for it. Um, Now, this is an interesting scenario. It's an interesting situation because I feel like we're missing one of the most important aspects of the conversation. Yes, I mean, look, there was a backlash. People said that, the Black American public are the reason why she's done this badly is because they rebelled against her. After she said that, it really felt as if she was distancing herself from blackness, from black people. Now, the term black itself, I mean, I don't even know what you even call that. It is a term that we did not come up with. It was come up, it was given to us by white people, by Europeans, colonizers, and slavers. That's how the name was given to us. And we are not actually black, in terms of what the color black actually is. We're brown, we're melanated people, we have different shades of brown. Regardless, for the sake of this video, we're going to just use the word black to represent African people, genuinely 100% African people, aka who you're looking at right here. So it felt like she was distancing herself from that, and it brought up the conversation as to what does colored even mean, And in this video, what I'm going to talk to you about is a little bit of the history of what the term colored means in the context of South Africa. Obviously, we understand the term in the context of the West. Colored is a very negative term now in the US and UK, so it's not a term that anybody uses because it's archaic. But in South Africa, it is still used. Now, what people need to understand is that the term colored is rooted in white supremacy. During apartheid, there was a thing called the Population Registration Act in 1950. Now, that was a forced delineation of racial groups in South Africa. They didn't have a choice. It wasn't something that they could choose that this is what they wanted to be. And so it wasn't like that. This was by force. And there were four groups that South Africans had to fall into. White, which was obviously the dominant class, the minority, mind you, but they were the ones with all the power, the land, and all the rights, because they were the ones who were actually delineating who would be in each racial group. Then there was the colored group, and the colored group is a catch-all group, which is basically anybody that cannot be put in any of the other groups. So if you're mixed race, mixed half white, half black, Asian and white, whatever, you were put into that group. Then there was the Asians and Indians and so forth, which a lot of people don't realize that there is a big Indian population in South Africa. So the Indians would then fit into the third group, and then blacks into the fourth group, who are at the bottom of the hierarchy. So the way the pyramid would work is that you would have whites at the top, then you would have colored, then you would have Indians, and then you would have black at the bottom. Ironically, the blacks were the majority and are the majority population in South Africa. So the reason why this was so important is that you wanted to make sure that you could enforce the law based on splitting people into these groups, because if you didn't have this delineation, it would have been more difficult, I should say, to ascertain who was to receive what kind of treatment within South African society, because it was a racist society. In addition to that, it helped you, and this is what we're going to talk about as well here in this video. It's actually assisted the apartheid government in maintaining control and power. okay? Because you'd divided the population that could overthrow you. The last thing they wanted was for the Indians, the so-called colored groups, the mixed race people, and the black population to band together to assail them to overthrow the white ruling class. That is not what they wanted. They had to create a system whereby members of the population could access power at different levels, because whites had all the power, but they gave a certain amount of rights and power to the colored groups that were above the Indians. And then the Indians had a certain set of powers that were above the blacks. The blacks had the least powers, the least rights, and they were the worst treated in apartheid society. And that was very important because the Indians and the colored group would essentially fight to keep things the way they were, because at least they were the last thing that they wanted was to be labeled black. Because if you were categorized as black, you automatically started losing rights. So for somebody who isn't even racist, they're not even thinking that they hate black people or anything like that. This was purely practical. And this is the reason why the way that these apartheid colonizers organized their systems was so effective. It was so effective because what they were doing was creating incentives for the people beneath them to fight each other. This light is getting a bit bright. So once they created a system like this, it was actually incredibly effective, and it's something that is known as divide and rule. The colored labor preference policy was something that was utilized in the apartheid regime, and the colored labor preference was basically what it sounds like. If you were colored, you had preferential treatment in the workforce over black people. I'll explain to you now in very simple terms because it is something that also occurs in America, and it's called wedge politics. So you're aware in the United States that Black Americans, African Americans, are constantly being insulted and abused and looked down on and criticized by African immigrants, Asian immigrants, Latinos, whatever group is coming into the country, Irish, Italians, where they came in. Every group that isn't naturally white has something negative to say about Black Americans. And the reason why is that they've been positioned that way in order to maintain the system of white supremacy that exists in America, because they are used as wedge politics. And one of the most effective wedge politics groups in the United States are the Asian community, who are notoriously called the model immigrants. Like, they're called the good immigrants, the fantastic immigrants. And Nigerians as well are also culprits on this. And the reason why that exists is that they are used to neutralize the arguments and the drive for acknowledgement for the Black African and Black American population, because people can then use them and say, you see how these people are. If they can do it, why can't you? While you ignore the 400 years, 500 years of, 400 years of slavery, 100 years of segregation, Jim Crow, and all the things that you've done to keep the Black American population down, you ignore all of that and you just compare them to people who literally just got off the boat yesterday because they share the same tone of skin, or they share the fact that they're not white, and you compare them to them. Now, the Asian community in America work very hard to maintain that because it gives them rights and a level of cachet that they cherish because it puts them above Black people. Typically, as long as you're not Black in America, you are doing well. That is the way a lot of immigrants who arrive in America feel, and that is what is sold to them. From the second they arrive, you're assaulted by the news, the media, the films, the television, the music. All of this imagery is negative. And you see a community that doesn't have any real power, and the power base is with these other groups. So you want to align yourselves with them. That is exactly the same kind of thing that the colored South Africa concept was about. It was designed to stop the Black majority from rising. That's all it's there for. Because what you've done is that you've taken a group that could have easily been absorbed by the Black population, and you've said that, no, you are not like them, you're better than them. And that group has absorbed that. The sad thing is that this thing was splitting up families. Families were you would have twins, even twins, where one twin looks light and has different texture hair, and the other twin is darker and they would split up twins and put one and say, you're black and this twin is colored. Can you imagine that? You would also have situations, which is very humiliating, of reclassification. So they could reclassify you at any point in apartheid South Africa. So you could be born colored. Then when you're 15, they reclassify you. When somebody looks at you and says, no, you're not colored, you're black. You get reclassified as black. You lose rights. Then 10 years later, they look at you again and say, that person is colored. They reclassify you, that you're now colored. You gain rights. And then they look at you again 5 years, you're now black. You lose rights. That is literally how crazy it was. They had a test, and I'm going to show you something. Have you heard of something? There was something known as the pencil test. So this is not a pencil, but it's a pen that can be used as an example. I don't have any hair, but I'll explain to you what the pencil test was. So some people will go and they take a pencil and they would say to you that, stand over there, and they would put the pen or pencil into the hair of the person. So a white person would pick somebody who looks black, it could be colored, whatever, and they'll put a pencil into the hair. Now, if the pencil, then they'll be told to shake their head. So they'll put the pencil into their hair and said, shake your head. If when they shake their head, the pencil falls out, they are classified as colored. If they shake their head and the pencil doesn't fall out, they are classified as black. That is literally what these people would do. You couldn't have anything more degrading. And the crazy thing is that if you got classified as one thing or the other, it's actually affected your life. So you could get 4, 5 siblings going in this line where they're doing the pencil test on them. If 3 out of the 5 the pencil falls out, they're colored, they get separated. 2 out of the 5, the pencil doesn't fall out of their hair, they're separated and they're sent somewhere else. Now I'm going to ask you this, guys. Is this something that should be preserved in modern culture? When an artist of the popularity in Africa of Tyla is out there talking about the fact that she's not black, she's colored, and this is the way it is in South Africa, is that something to be proud of? Is that something to be celebrated? Is that something to be supported? Is that something to be defended? Because I see a lot of South Africans who come onto my page and they have this siege mentality where they will fight everybody except the white people in the country. Africans are the problem, immigrants are the problem, Nigerians are the problem, anybody who says anything critical about any of the situations, there's a problem. The people who are the problem are sitting and living right next to you, which for me makes me believe that that's part of the reason for this kind of animosity. It's almost, is it a shame thing that you're embarrassed about the fact that these people are still there and you cannot fight them, so you're fighting everybody else? Because I have no ill will to, listen, South Africa for me is one of the most, it is one of the most important parts of Africa. Without South Africa, I do not believe that there can be genuine African unity. Forget about North Africa, that's gone for now anyway. But South Africa is critically important. But my goodness, to fight to keep the term colored is crazy. It is literally a white supremacist concept. So for anybody to walk around with their chest up and say, I'm colored, what? You should be fighting to dismantle that. So for me, it's like, this is a product, and I believe most people who say this in South Africa don't actually know the history. You might hear that, oh, come on, of course they do. I genuinely believe that they don't know the history, people. Because if they did, a lot of them would have a lot more difficulty in defending this. When I even put out this history on my Instagram and so forth, they still couldn't process it. And they were still coming back and talking about, this is how we do things and this is how you do things. They couldn't process the factual history that this thing that you're defending was designed to destroy your community. It is designed to destroy the black community in South Africa, to keep them weak, to keep them from mobilizing and being united. It's all history. You need to learn history, and that is what I try to do on my platform, is that, look, Tyla is one thing. She just gave me an excuse to be able to talk about something that needs to be spoken of, because these kinds of concepts and the lack of awareness of our true history is the reason why we're in the position we're in as Africans, because we don't control our education or entertainment. And that's the reason why we're even having this debate. She should have been chastised immediately and educated immediately. In fact, Tyla should not be in a position where she doesn't know the history I'm telling you. She should listen. Black, I don't like the term. No, I don't like being called black. But for what it's worth, what it is that this is an umbrella that we are all together. This binds us. People who are lighter, do you think that listen, a white supremacist doesn't give a damn how light you are? If he's going to lynch you, he's going to do what he's going to do. He's going to do what he's going to do. You're just black to them. And what's most important is you're not white. So for me, I think that the learning of history is absolutely critical. And actually, to that point, before I even go any further, I've been, for those people who know, I've been working on a graphic novel series. I'll get some, it's here for you. It's called The Crusaders graphic novel series about true African history. This was episode 1 that I released a few years ago. And it's about a group of African siblings who go on adventures all over the world to reclaim stolen African artifacts that were stolen from Africa during colonialism and slavery and so forth. So it's action-packed, but it's dealing with genuine, true African history, naming kings that have been forgotten, kingdoms that have been forgotten, naming the culprits and the criminals, the war criminals in the colonial powers and the empires that actually stole these artifacts or obfuscated the truth. These things are very important for our children and our communities to learn. And that's what I have actually executed in this series. But this is to say that episode 2 is going to be released very, very soon. So depending on when you're watching it, it might already be out. But right now, if you're watching this earlier, you can sign up to be on the wait list for a pre-order alert when it's ready to be sold. This is, twice the length of episode 1. Fantastic. We've taken things up a level. And the family is now really, really pushing towards their adventures. But what's important about this is that it's our own heroes. It's genuine. I created this from Africa, from an African perspective, completely independently. And this is funded by the 300, which is my independent funding group. Again, completely independent of my most dedicated supporters. Remember, I spoke about this on my channel some months ago, and you really did it. We have meetings 4 times a year. When we have the meeting, I present 3 projects. They vote on it, the one that they want me to make for the upcoming quarter. They all contribute a minimum of $100 or as much as they want. Most people are putting in way more than 100 every quarter. They put that money in. I then go and I produce the product. And this was what won the vote in quarter 1, Q1, and now it is ready. So I've proved that I do what I say. We've proved as a collective that we can work together and do what we say. It's very exciting to be able to have autonomously created this free of any outside forces or institutions or corporations. This is a special edition commemorative steel poster of episode 1 that I will be giving away to some lucky fans out there. I'm going to decide how I'm going to give this away. We're going to be making a limited edition of these steel posters of the Crusaders episode 1. So I will stay tuned for information on how you can get yourselves one of those. But I want to say thank you to the 300 for supporting me. I'm really grateful for the support that you've given, and I hope that you're happy about the fact that we've actually done it. But it's good that this is happening now, and the topic of this video being the Tyla situation and colored versus black, and the fact that this is just all rooted in a lack of knowledge of history. We need to take control of our own education and our own history. Otherwise, we're on a road to nowhere. And that is what my platform is dedicated to.